In Photo-Soundbite 9, we saw how spot metering, followed by adjustments in Lightroom or Photoshop, was one way of restoring exposure balance to an image of high contrast. An alternative is HDR, High Dynamic Range. But whereas spot metering could increase noise, HDR files are automatically saved to JPEG and not RAW, which may not be suitable for some photographers. As explained in Photo-Soundbite 9, despite the breathtaking advances in technology of digital photography, we haven't reached the stage where a digital sensor can capture a scene of high contrast in the same way that can be seen by the human eye. Without help, it is almost certain that part of the image will be overexposed, underexposed, or even both. Using the same scenario for spot metering, I paid a trip with my Olympus EM1 Mark II camera to St Mary's Church, Bletchingley in Surrey, which gets a mention in Simon Jenkins' excellent Bible, England's 1,000 Best Churches, an indispensable guide for lovers of church architecture. Before starting, I spot metered for comparison first the window and then the interior. The results with the ISO set at 200 were a 400th of a second at f11 for the window and a 1/6 of a second at 6.3 for the interior, a difference of nearly 8 stops, which no sensor can handle on auto. Indeed, quite a difficult test even for HDR and post-production work. A firm support is essential, so a tripod could be regarded as essential here, as the camera takes several shots in register. I experimented with these different HDR settings. HDR1, the camera takes 4 shots automatically in quick succession, combines the best bits in camera for JPEG output. The ISO is set to 200 and cannot be changed. And if the photographer has set the camera to save in RAW, a separate RAW file is created from a single exposure. HDR2 as HDR1, but the exposure differences are greater. Multiple shot HDR gives different choices of exposure rates and exposures, allowing the photographer to merge images in Photoshop. Photographers possessing different cameras should consult their instruction books, as procedures and function names could be different. For comparison, I took 2 further images, one on auto, the second spot metered off the window and corrected in Lightroom as explained in Photo-Soundbite 9. HDR images are saved to JPEG. Therefore, any further adjustments in Photoshop will require the image to be compressed and digitally processed a second time. Fortunately, a RAW file without HDR corrections can be saved separately. HDR can also be used outdoors, but subjects prone to movement will introduce ghosting because several images are taken seconds apart. Misuse of HDR, especially HDR2, can result in over-dramatic photographs that look entirely false.